Why do we rarely hear about tubes anymore? Well, you can tell that they've fallen out of popularity because you can go to just about any brick and mortar retailer and walk in there and they're going to have tubes, but it might only be 3 or 4 choices. Where if you're talking, creature baits or stick baits, there could be hundreds of choices in that same retailer. So they're definitely not the lure that is all the rage like they were maybe 15, 20 years ago. And you know what? As far as I'm concerned, that is a good thing, especially if you're fishing heavily pressured lakes. Now, there are only a few lures in our tackle collection that can handle anything that we run across. Anything that's in front of us or anything that's below us, there's just a few baits that can really cover the entire water column, and this tube is one of them. Well, we're gonna talk about what I consider as next level tubing, and that's swimming and cracking. I've done videos on these before, and I'll go ahead and link them down below, but a lot of people just flip a tube, into cover, something like that, and let it fall. And when you're using an insert tube head, wow, the versatility is amazing. Yes, it looks great on the drop with that little spiral, like that, sick or dying bait fish type of situation. But with that insert tube head, you can swim it as well, and it swims so incredibly just realistic and natural. Now, it can be tricky. If you don't have it rigged exactly straight, you may want to put a swivel up on your line to eliminate some rolling and line twist, but it's just so subtle as it glides through the water. It skips really well. Okay, a tube with an insert tube head, man, you can skip it under all kinds of stuff, but it also cracks extremely well. Mark Zona is a huge proponent of cracking a tube, and the key, just real quickly, the key with cracking a tube is make sure it's on a slack line, okay? You don't want to be bouncing it on a taut line. What you want to do is get that tube to really dance around, but just a little bit. Okay, and it draws the attention of those bass. We've talked about how curious they are, and they just cannot keep away from it. They're like, what is happening down there? So those two presentations are very different than your traditional, flip it out and let it drop type of a scenario. And like I mentioned, they're so versatile. I mean, with the same lure, you can mimic prey species that are walking along the bottom, your crawfish, or prey that is up in the water column, your bait fish, whether those are minnows, shad, sunfish, whatever they could possibly be, and we can swap colors out so incredibly fast, and they come with just a wide assortment of just colors that look so good, whether you really want to do the swimming thing and target those bait fish species, or go down to the bottom. There's all kinds of greens and browns and oranges. They just look so good. And like I said, there's just a few lures out there, a jig being one of those, where you can imitate stuff that crawls on the bottom or stuff that's swimming up in the water column in back-to-back casts without retying, without changing lures. As an angler that's trying to dial in what's going on, that is so critically important, such a time saver. A tube with an insert tube head is also really versatile if it gets hung up on vegetation. So if that hook grabs some weeds on the drop, just boom, pop it off there, much like a lot of anglers do up in Minnesota and Wisconsin, what they call, using a jig worm. They'll use an open hook on a worm, same type of thing. They'll throw it into the vegetation, let it snag on purpose, and then rip it off of there. Well, a tube can handle that type of presentation very well. So not only does a tube pass the eye test for that curious bass because it looks so extremely natural, it's also a lure that you get high percentage of hook sets because that body is soft and it squishes down just a bit, and the hook is already exposed with this type of insert tube head, but when that body squishes down as well, it's just more often than not you're going to get the fish hooked up. If you'd like to watch a video that goes into more detail on cracking a tube, go ahead and check this one out right here, and make sure that you go out and encourage someone today. You never know how you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.